Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, the Guard of Honor in honor of your arrival has been erected. The head of the guard is Lieutenant Shons. Hello, comrades. Greetings, Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation. Congratulations on Navy Day. Hooray! 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 An urgent Vladimir Putin look-alike has appeared in public. Putin received an award from Nikolai Patrushev, and Donald Trump issued a final Chinese warning. Political consultant Mikhail Sheitelman talks about this and more today. Mr. Mikhail, welcome. Thank you for taking the time. Good evening, Vladyslav. Friends, please like this video, give us your opinion on the topics of the broadcast, indicate the country and city where you are watching us from, so that this video can be seen by as many people as possible, including the audience in the temporarily occupied territories of the Russian Federation. Recently, Vladimir Putin, or his doppelganger as various sources suggest, took in a parade in honor of Russian Navy Day in the courtyard of a house in Saint Petersburg. Nikolai Patrushev awarded Putin a medal for his loyalty to the Russian Navy, despite failures with military installations, notably the cruiser Moskva, which sank and still lies at the bottom of the Black Sea, and the events at Kursk. Most likely this mockery is a medal that Patrushev gave to Putin to humiliate him. He understands everything. The irony in this situation was enough for him. There were many reasons. Everyone has forgotten about Moscow and Kursk, and there are other hotter reasons to give such an award. The first is the events on Sunday in Saint Petersburg, when they cancelled the parade in honor of Navy Day. This is a credit to the security service of Ukraine. It was probably special purpose units, possibly the SBU. The exact details are not available. No one reported or claimed responsibility for launching drones at St. Petersburg. It was the largest shelling of the Leningrad region during the war. More than 50 drones flew there. Pulkovo Airport was closed. Presumably because of this, the parade was cancelled. On Sunday, it was assumed that this was the reason for the cancellation. Later, strange footage appeared. Perhaps the parade was cancelled because Vladimir Putin was not ready to take part. He was hidden in courtyards in front of what were probably disguised Federal Security Service officers. Putin's bizarre march was shown. In general, if you notice, Putin hasn't appeared for a long time. Since Donald Trump's ultimatum, Vladimir Putin has not appeared in public for 2 weeks. This is seen as the second potential reason for the parade being cancelled. Until the last moment, it was hoped that Putin could be prepared to participate in the parade, but he was unable to attend. Cancelling Russia's main naval event an hour before the start was evidence of defeat and a demonstration of internal crisis. Russian Army and Navy. This blow Patrushev was obliged to deliver, displaying the figure of a limp, sickly, incomprehensible creature. Patrushev added his own. The victory with the aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov was also voiced. It became known that the flagship of the Russian Navy is being scrapped under curious circumstances. It was not Vladimir Putin who scrapped it, but Andrei Kostin, head of Vneshekonombank. He personally gave the order, let's scrap it, since it cannot be repaired. Earlier, it was Kostin who allocated a loan from Vneshekonombank to repair the aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov. The total amount of the loan was about $1 billion, possibly a little more, given the exchange rate fluctuations during the repair period. At first, these funds were allocated to repair the aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov, but later Andrei Kostin said that the ship would either be cut up for scrap metal or sold as is. A proposal was made for Ukraine to buy this metal to produce new drones and ammunition. There is symbolism in this. The humiliation was enough, and Nikolai Patrushev, as the person in charge of shipbuilding in Vladimir Putin's team, could not stand it. He was openly laughed at, and he decided to take revenge on his boss so that he would be laughed at as well. Leave your opinions below the video. What do you think of the parade in Vladimir Putin's backyard? Write your jokes in the comments and don't forget to support Mikhail Sheitelman's analytics with a like. In continuation of the topic, Putin is afraid of drones. In the center of Moscow, Vladimir Putin and his guards move around with an FPV interceptor. A Ukrainian military officer with the call sign Flash published a Facebook post that shows Vladimir Putin's security guard carrying not only the usual suitcase, but also a device that looks like an FPV interceptor. This raises the question, is Putin really afraid of FPV drones in the center of Moscow? Surprisingly, in the fourth year of the so-called special military operation, Putin continues to fear drone attacks right in the Russian capital. There is nothing unexpected about this. Today, any specialist in the protection of protected persons, including presidents, will confirm that drones are the main threat. In the past, snipers who operate from a great distance were considered the main threat, and rooftops were cleared in advance. However, modern small drones have demonstrated capabilities that make them much more dangerous in the current environment. The Daily Mail describes an apocalyptic assassination scenario using FPV drones. Such devices are now probably in the security arsenal of every protected person. The fear is present. What is particularly telling is that there is a real threat of FPV drone attack in the center of Moscow, near the most heavily guarded facilities, including strategic bombers. The Kremlin has already been hit the roof of the cabinet, and it is probably technically feasible to hit Vladimir Putin. However, for political reasons, such actions are not taken. US President Donald Trump shortened Russia's deadline from 50 to 10 to 12 days, issuing a political ultimatum. The Kremlin hasn't responded officially, and Russian channels give unclear answers. Based on past actions, they may react harshly or ignore it. Some experts view this as political gamesmanship, not a direct threat. There has been an uproar in Russia. Everyone has responded except Vladimir Putin. Putin is silent. It is unknown where he is and in what condition. Don't expect him to die soon. It's not about him being in a refrigerator. It's about his manic depressive state, probably related to health problems. During such periods, he becomes active for a few weeks. Vladimir Putin is prepared for events such as Victory Day or the BRICS summit held last year in Kazan. During these periods, he is hyperactive, making daily statements and holding meetings. Then he disappears for prophylaxis, undergoes recovery, and is released back into the public space. In between, only his doppelgangers appear, as it happened in the courtyard of an unknown building in Saint Petersburg. It is unclear whether the filming actually took place in Saint Petersburg. No information is available. Vladimir Putin is in bad shape and is probably therefore not responding. Perhaps he is deliberately not responding as he watches the West's reaction to the statements of his allies, Dmitry Medvedev, Dmitry Peskov, Sergei Lavrov, and Valery Makarov. All of them have already commented on Donald Trump's ultimatum. Dmitry Medvedev announced that in response to the ultimatum, Russia may declare war on itself, the Russian Federation. This statement caused a serious resonance. Dmitry Peskov also commented on the situation. It is hoped that these words will be translated to Donald Trump, who has already responded to Medvedev earlier. Such statements are believed to irritate Trump as he realizes that Medvedev is speaking through Vladimir Putin's mouth. This is the first thing. Second, Dmitry Peskov said that Russia will not give up and will continue the special military operation despite the sanctions. According to him, China, Korea, and Iran are Russia's main allies. He also expressed regret that relations with the United States are deteriorating again. Sergei Lavrov said that Russia was indifferent to any ultimatums, as the country had already experienced all this, but admitted that Russia had no allies. Russia has no allies and is waging war alone. Valery Makarov said that the country has been under sanctions for 500 years and nothing terrible is happening. According to him, if Russia coped before, it will cope now. In the context of Donald Trump's abbreviated ultimatum, these statements look like a show of confidence despite international pressure. Russia's reaction is not decisive. It should be understood that Russia is not going to stop the war under any circumstances. Vladimir Putin has no other way, and no one is counting on him to rethink it, including Donald Trump. Trump is counting on Xi Jinping to come to his senses. Secondary sanctions against Brazil, India, and China are expected. Let's move on to the substantive part. I'm not sure that Trump on what date, August 7th, 8th, 9th, well, that's his current deadline, is going to do what he promised one time, impose sanctions, impose 100% tariffs on all three of these countries plus Turkey. No, I don't think he's going to do that. He'll hold some of the cards, but he'll take some steps. That's what I'm willing to believe. Some steps, whether it's sanctions against Russia or 100% tariff on the Russian Federation. Donald Trump may impose additional tariffs of 20% on India, China, and Brazil. This is potentially painful for Russia, as India has already stated. If additional tariffs are imposed, it will refuse to buy Russian oil. Over the past 2.5 years, India has brought Russia $120 billion, meaning about a year of the war funding came from Indian purchases. In 2023, Russia actually financed the war with oil revenues from India. India is the second largest importer of Russian oil after China. Losing such a partner would be a serious blow. Now in Sweden, the teams of Donald Trump and Xi Jinping are negotiating a trade agreement that could include a clause on China's refusal to buy Russian oil or its gradual reduction. Europe pledged as part of Sunday's deal to stop buying Russian oil and gas within a year and a half and replace them with supplies from the United States. Dmitry Peskov said that Russia will continue the special military operation despite Donald Trump's statements, arguing that it is necessary to protect national interests. This is an expected reaction that shows the Kremlin's unwillingness to consider a cessation of hostilities in the near future. This, of course, is not news to us, but the question is this: how much can we count on a radical change in Donald Trump's rhetoric? After all, there have been publications that Trump has already realized Vladimir Putin is playing him, and the previous rhetoric is not working. So the question is short: how much can Trump really change, and how much does the Kremlin realize this? Even Donald Trump's opponents, such as CNN, recognize that his position has changed not ad hoc, but systemically, and this has been observed for months. CNN's chief political observer noted that Trump's rhetoric previously oscillated between blaming Ukraine and blaming Russia, but now he is ruling out Ukraine's culpability, holding Russia solely responsible. Trump's current rhetoric balances between offering dialogue with Russia and rejecting it.
то сегодня об этом уже речи не идет, ни о какой вине Украины, что сегодня виновата только Россия. Мало того, то есть сегодня это качается между «давайте попробуем с ними поговорить» и «зачем с ними разговаривать».
Donald Trump's current position is characterized by a different range in which he fluctuates. This is fine with him because if his rhetoric moves between the absence of sanctions against Vladimir Putin and their possible imposition, sanctions will eventually be imposed. Trump has decided to speed things up even though he could have continued to savor his victory over Europe. On Sunday, he struck the biggest trade deal in the world. The United States, as the world's largest economy, has entered into a trade agreement with the European Union, the world's second largest economy, or comparable to China. This agreement governs trade between the two sides for the coming years and was recognized within the US as a victory for Donald Trump. Donald Trump decided to be proactive and escalate tensions by speeding up developments. Although economists in different countries assess the trade agreement differently, the U.S. press recognized Sunday's deal as a victory for Trump. He could have used the deal as political capital until September 3, when his ultimatum to Vladimir Putin expires, but chose to accelerate. Such a move eliminates the possibility of backtracking at the current moment. Trump is expected to take concrete action on August 11th.
Какого числа? Давайте предположу, что 11 августа. 11 августа должны быть предприняты какие-то действия со стороны Трампа.
Also, indeed, in the context of economic sanctions, the Western American press is actively writing about the fact that senators from the Republican Party support U.S. President Donald Trump on the issue of unified pressure on the Russian Federation, including economic pressure. How do you see this? To what extent do you think tough sanctions against Russia are possible? And the same question, to what extent do the Kremlin and Vladimir Putin himself understand this? Donald Trump refused the help of senators, saying he prefers to act on his own and does not need a bill that would limit his freedom of choice. He stated, "I'll do it myself, break it up." The lower house of the U.S. Congress has gone on vacation until the end of August or September, so the activity of senators is temporarily symbolic and of no practical significance. The symbolic meaning is support for Ukraine and condemnation of the Russian Federation. From a practical point of view, they are an extra link today. Everything will be decided by Donald Trump alone. Trump is influenced, some believe, by Marco Rubio. There was an article in the Financial Times this weekend titled "The Evolution of Marco Rubio." It is amazing in its headline. This is the third article with such a headline in the last 3 months. Earlier articles appeared in Bloomberg and the New York Times, and now in the Financial Times. Publications of different orientations equally assess Marco Rubio's significant influence on Donald Trump, and also recognize the fact that Marco Rubio has won the internal struggle to determine foreign policy. Many competed for it. Elon Musk claimed foreign policy control, attending Trump's first talk with Zelenskyy. J.D. Vance claimed it, attending the second. Witkoff met Putin and Zelenskyy, but Marco Rubio won, with Keith Kellogg as his key aide. Thus, the forecast for Trump's future actions is moderately positive. Leave your thoughts below this video. How do you think events will unfold? How seriously do you think Donald Trump's ultimatum is being taken by the Kremlin? Your thoughts and emotions right now. Mikhail already mentioned China, but I want to remind you about Istanbul. We remember Recep Tayyip Erdogan's statement that he is taking the initiative for a possible meeting between Trump and Vladimir Putin on the territory of Turkey, more precisely, in the format of Turkey.
Ердоган сказав, що бере на себе ініціативу про можливу зустріч Трампа, Путіна на території Туреччини, взагалі в форматі Туреччини, мабуть, правильніше так сказати.
In simple terms, Erdogan's statements about the Russia-Ukraine-US triangle have been around for a while. Whether such a meeting is possible and if Putin and Trump would agree deserves separate consideration. It's also key to assess how effective such a meeting might be in resolving the conflict. It probably doesn't make much sense, all statements. The meeting in Istanbul took place on Wednesday last week. We have been patiently waiting for its results. The Sheitelman channel, which I recommend subscribing to, got 650,000 subscribers today. We waited 4 hours for the results. The delegation brought their proposals. Vladimir Medinsky came out and said that he considered the fourth round to be the main result. The meeting ended without concrete results. I think this was one of the factors that influenced Donald Trump to speed up the fourth round and shorten the deadline for Vladimir Putin. He made sure that these are useless, meaningless, repetitive talks by Vladimir Medinsky, from which there is no benefit. This is probably the main result of the Istanbul talks. On Friday night our time, when it was morning in the United States, Donald Trump suddenly announced that he was going to meet with Vladimir Zelenskyy and Vladimir Putin. Many were surprised that the meeting would actually take place. I immediately noted that this looks like an attempt at deception on the part of Donald Trump. It was as if he threw Vladimir Putin a bait to see if he would come out of the shadows. However, Putin did not react or make any statements. On the same day, the Turkish foreign minister, upon hearing Trump's statement, rushed to confirm that a meeting between the four leaders, Trump, Putin, Vladimir Zelenskyy, and Recep Tayyip Erdogan, was planned. This was announced on Saturday by the Turkish minister. He rushed after Donald Trump, who, as it turned out, was just joking and said that he was not going to communicate with Vladimir Putin. Recep Tayyip Erdogan's statement was softer. He expressed readiness to organize negotiations. Organizing a table is not a difficult task. The problem is that Putin has not come out of his isolation, has not shown initiative, and until he appears, there is nothing to discuss. When he comes, we will discuss it then. Question then. Remember, I think a week ago, Donald Trump was talking about a possible meeting between Vladimir Zelenskyy and Vladimir Putin. How do you see that happening? Because so far Putin is not ready for any formats, and probably his position will not change in the near future. Why did Trump talk about it?
Точно його позиція не зміниться. Чому про це Трамп говорив? Перше питання. А по-друге, що цей формат дає Україні? Наскільки він дійсно може бути ефективним, на вашу думку?
The official position of Ukraine was voiced. The president, the delegation, and Rustem Umerov confirmed the existence of the proposal to hold a meeting. With this instruction, Umerov went to Istanbul. His goal was to reach an agreement on the organization of negotiations. He put forward an initiative. The Russian delegation responded that it was not interested. Dmitry Peskov said, "You are trying to put the cart before the horse," emphasizing that first it was necessary to negotiate and sign a peace agreement, and only then Vladimir Putin could participate. That is, never. So far, it looks like a completely meaningless negotiation. It is hard to believe that Vladimir Putin and Vladimir Zelenskyy will ever meet. This meeting will probably not take place because Putin is afraid of a face-to-face meeting with Zelenskyy. He realizes that he will not be able to confront him and will lose any face-to-face negotiations. The day before, the former commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Valery Zaluzhnyi, who now serves as ambassador to the United Kingdom, made his appearance and publication in Vogue magazine. Changing his image through a column in a glossy magazine raises questions. What does it mean in simple words? Different information is already spreading. Someone is talking about a possible political career. Someone is starting to remember the elections. How do you perceive this from the point of view of political technology? And what are your predictions about the change in the rhetoric and image of the former commander-in-chief? If I understood correctly, it is a photo in the World Vogue magazine, not in the Ukrainian one. I checked the Ukrainian Vogue website. It's not there, so it could be the international version. When Vogue magazine asks for a photo shoot, you agree. It was not him who came to Vogue with the proposal. It was Vogue who came to him. He's a famous, prominent man. He's in London. It makes sense that the magazine would want to take material from him. A man in the prime of life is a suitable image for a magazine. As far as I remember, Volodymyr Zelenskyy also had a photo shoot for Vogue with his wife, where they acted as models. This promotes Ukraine, especially if we are talking about an international edition. Here is our commander-in-chief. Here is our ambassador. We are such Ukrainians. We are Europeans, civilized people. Vogue will not photograph, for example, Sergei Lavrov. You can't imagine Peskov on the pages of Vogue, but Zaluzhnyi can. Any photos on the pages of Vogue of our stars, and these are our stars, even Kirill Budanov, even Vasyl Malyuk, will work for Ukraine, and this is the most important thing. I don't know how Zaluzhnyi got there, but he was invited by Vogue. You cannot call and say, take a picture of our Zaluzhnyi when it comes to the World Vogue. When you talk about the change in rhetoric, I listened to the interview Valery Zaluzhnyi gave last week to Sonia Koshkina from the Left Bank channel. Left Bank channel. This interview with Valery Zaluzhnyi was very interesting and informative. I recommend it to everyone. There is no change of rhetoric in it. I have read Zaluzhny's articles in The Economist, and his current statements are a development of the thoughts he put forward in the publication when he was Ukraine's ambassador to the UK for about a year. Valery Zaluzhnyi argues not about politics, but about defense and security. He raises the issue of ensuring joint security of NATO and Ukraine. He notes that without Ukraine it is impossible to produce weapons in the West today. He puts forward a thesis. In a year or two, albeit without an exact time frame, Ukraine will address NATO, Great Britain and the United States with a list of what it needs to wage war. They will read this list and ask, what's this? Because they will not know. Today, only Ukraine produces the most advanced weapons that the West does not yet know how to create, because they have not faced this type of warfare. Valery Zaluzhnyi calls for joint production. There is already a joint production of Ukrainian weapons with Denmark. This is the first swallow. There is a co-production with the USA, as mentioned by Vladimir Zelenskyy. Boris Pistorius mentioned joint production with Ukraine-Germany. Joint production is necessary because Ukraine lacks funds, while its partners lack ideas, technologies, and solutions proven on the battlefield. Valery Zaluzhnyi speaks about it. It is still strange to see politics in this. His rhetoric has not changed compared to a year or a year and a half ago, since he left or resigned as commander-in-chief. As for his prospects as president, they are possible. Of course, if you conduct surveys which are regularly conducted by reputable agencies, for example, Rating or KMIS, it becomes obvious. They record the dynamics of sentiment, which is confirmed by the results of the elections. In a hypothetical, not yet announced election race, there are two leaders.
теоретической несуществующей предвыборной гонки. Несуществующей, потому что выборы не объявлены.
There are two leaders. If they ask you who you trust the most, it is certainly Valery Zaluzhnyi, and Vladimir Zelenskyy is in second place in terms of trust. All the others, with a large gap at the bottom. That is, there are two at the top, the rest are far behind. If a poll is conducted, who will you vote for in the elections? This pair is also in the lead. So far, at least in the first round, Zelenskyy has the advantage. They get more than 80% of the votes. The others get almost nothing. Valery Zaluzhnyi is one of the most realistic candidates for the Ukrainian presidency. He may take the post if the war ends and elections are held. Anyone who bets on his victory is unlikely to make a mistake. It is not certain that he will win, but he is likely to be one of the 2 or 3 most likely candidates. Perhaps he will be the only one if Vladimir Zelenskyy does not go to the polls after the war. In this case, Zaluzhnyi may win already in the first round. However, there is still a factor of uncertainty. After the end of the war, people will return from the front, and someone else from the military may be more popular. Mikhail, in times of war, our stars are military men, former and those who are now on the front line, and it's hard to disagree with that. Friends, what do you think about Valery Zaluzhny's photo shoot for Vogue magazine? Write your opinion under this video. Whether you agree with Mikhail Sheitelman or not, it will be interesting to read. Western press is reporting that China and the US have extended the tariff truce for another 3 months. First there was economic aggravation, now there's a truce. What's going on, and how do you assess China's role in relations between the US, Russia, and the PRC? There is no triangle because we are talking about the confrontation between the US and China as 2 comparable forces.
Економічне нагнітання, загострення, тепер перемир'я. Що відбувається та як би ви оцінили роль Китаю, ви вже частково про це теж говорили сьогодні, між в трикутнику США, Росія та Китай?
Вы знаете, нет, тут такого треугольника не существует, безусловно, просто не существует, ну простите, да? Потому что есть противостояние США с китайцами, так как это 2 сравнимые между собой силы.
Russia has nothing to do with it. What triangle are we talking about? This is like talking about the triangle of the United States, China, and Mongolia. There are real tariff and economic negotiations between the United States and China. At first, they were in a trade war, imposing duties of up to 145% on each other. Later, there were talks in Switzerland, and a temporary compromise was established. Now the negotiations are continuing in Sweden, but their results are still unknown. We have to wait for the results, as they are still unknown. Donald Trump has a goal of coming to a global agreement with China, similar to the one with the European Union. But now the parties are far from an agreement, and there is no indication yet that they have reached an agreement. Russia is not directly involved in this context. It looks more like a satellite of China. Just as some island territories are dependent on the United States, for example the Marshall Islands or Nauru, these countries are not involved in the negotiations between the United States and China, and are not considered parties. Another thing is that the Americans can include requirements in their agreements with China, such as not buying oil from Russia. This is important, but it does not make Russia an object of these negotiations. It remains a subject just like oil, rare earth metals, and the Russian Federation itself. Mikhail, thank you for the conversation, your position and thoughts. Mikhail Sheitelman, political technologist, answered our questions today. Friends who watch this video, please like it so that as many people as possible will see it. Write in the comments what you think about the so-called parade in the courtyard of Saint Petersburg, about Vladimir Putin's statements about drones, and about Valery Zaluzhny. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to Mikhail Sheitelman's channel. We'll see you on the air on 24. Thank you, goodbye.